welcome back, everybody. This is the final series reaction review to the series finale of the Bad Batch. We had that come out the other day. We've had the opportunity to watch that. But yeah, we'll go ahead and dive right in. I'll start off with just kind of some general reactions, pass it around, and then we'll get into kind of the specifics of the episode. But my kind of overall take with it, I think it was a really safe episode with a really non-typical ending for Star Wars. But I feel like for me and for kind of the overall vibe of the show, it kind of checked all the boxes. Do I think there was anything wild or crazy about the ending? Not really. But I was satisfied after watching it. So that's still pretty broad, I guess, but I'll throw it over to you guys, Lucas and Jason, here, kind of your overall reaction to the finale.
Yeah, I mean, I can ditto what you said because it's this finale really, I guess it gave me what I was missing in the last two episodes, right? Things you guys have known, you guys listened to the other previous episodes. I was just wanting a little bit more to happen and kind of like progress the story. And this episode checked all the boxes, and I was actually really excited to see how everything turned down. I'm really happy, you know, spoilers, no one died. So that was probably my biggest thing. So I was happy about that. Um, but it's still like there were still some risks and rewards that came through it. And I was actually really excited. And especially the very end, we got to see a glimpse of something super cool. So I really, really enjoyed that.
Well, the only thing I can add other than that, I thought it was amazing was I thought that they were going to keep any remnant of Project Necromancer alive, and they didn't. So that kind of was a little surprising to me that Rampart and Nalase did play a larger role than what I thought. But fantastic episode, and just adding to y'all's point about no one dying, it added significance to Tech's death because
sure.
no one else died. So he kind of was like the sacrifice for the team. So who would have thought that he'd be the only one? We all were speculating Crosshair. We were all speculating a lot of things.
Echo
and yeah,
Wrecker,
and
Wrecker.
Wrecker looked like it at the beginning, dude. I was like,
yeah.
Wrecker's not making it.
Bro, for reals. He's like hardly breathing. He's like walking through the forest. He's like, I can make it. And he's like stumbling. And I was like, bro's gonna keel over. He's like, he's gonna pull a dogma and just be like, you know what, bro's like, live to fight another day. I'll stay back and die, sacrifice. So glad it
But
didn't
dude,
happen.
he went from I'm about to die to probably like the most crazy fighting I've ever seen him ever do.
Right, like the strongest he's been.
Yeah, dude, I thought for sure when like the CX squad had like trapped them and they were all locked up and Omega like only loosens Wrecker's chains, I was like, bro, Wrecker's going out here, dude. This is it. But yeah, like you guys said, very surprising they chose to keep everyone. I felt like for the show as a whole, it was pretty on brand. Like obviously Tech's death hit us really hard. But like you said, Jason, the fact that everyone kind of makes it through here, I think that does definitely deepen Tech's sacrifice. And he was able to sacrifice for the team, and now they're still all around to be there for Omega. So, anyways, yeah, let's get into some details about the episode. I think one strong point that you already mentioned, Jason, that I'd love to pull apart is Nalase and Rampart. I feel like had one of the both of them took a really prominent role. And I think it was one of the darker aspects of the show, but I really liked it. I think Nalase up to this point has been kind of pointless for me. I'm like, who is this chick, But she just went out heavy style and was like, bro, we're not taking prisoners here, man. Like, they're not getting the research. So what are you guys' thoughts on that interaction there?
I honestly feel like we've thought that Kaminoans were absolute bots until like season 3 of Bad Batch. They're just kind of like annoying and dumb, and they go against fives, right? They're against fives in season 6 of Clone Wars, and so we never like them really. And then now I'll say when she has that interaction with Emery like earlier in the season, it's like, oh shoot, like this is she actually like cares about Omega, and ended up making the huge sacrifice to erase all the data. But I was hoping Rampart was going to change at some point. I was like, bro, where's Callus? We've been talking about it for episodes,
Yeah.
and he clearly didn't. And I like that, honestly. I like that he didn't because it gave him his own twist and happy ending. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'll stand by it, bro. I said it back in the day. Like he was with the Bad Batch, but at the end of the day, he's just looking out for himself. He's full Imperial, full Imperial. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, he even says that, right? In the last episode when he's talking to Crosshair and he goes, "You're just like me. Like we just tend to look out for ourselves in the end." And that's exactly what he did, but Nala say, which it was kind of funny too, because I wonder if there's gonna be some offshoot that Dave Filoni's gonna do to connect it with the the clones that we see in Mandalorian. Um, and so it's gonna because I'm assuming that has to be part of Project Necromancer, right? Because that's basically what we assumed. Because it's interesting because we haven't really seen exactly what Project Necromancer is. We've only speculated, right? There's Force sensitive kids. They're doing tests on clones to check their M count, right? And what we've kind of put everything together based off context clues but we haven't gotten anything, we haven't received anything definitive. And this is especially clear when Nala say or when Rampart shows up and goes, "Tell me everything about Project Necromancer." And then the scene cuts, and then when they come back to them, he's like, "Oh, that is very interesting," right? So it's like he's told the entire story, but the story dies with him when Nala say ends up blowing up the entire lab. And that is super interesting because it's like there's this still like massive question mark on what exactly is Project Necromancer. And that was even cooler after he destroyed the lab when Tarkin comes in and goes like after the aftermath and then says reroute all the funds to Project Stardust, which we know is the building of the Death Star. And that is cool. I love that. Like it was such a little minor detail, but it was so cool to see everything kind of connect.
yeah. Well, and I felt like
and
in some aspects you could look at that kind of interaction and them writing Project Necromancer out for the moment as kind of we're just covering our bases. We're going to make it easy and say, okay, yeah, they ended Project Necromancer. All the funding went to Stardust. Tarkin he's a backstabber. He's trying to get his agenda pushed through the whole time. And so great. That's an easy way to kind of write that out. But I do think it was interesting. I actually just finished the campaign for Star Wars Battlefront 2 yesterday. And
great campaign.
yeah, amazing
It's so
campaign.
good, actually.
Great campaign.
Really, really good. We'll have to talk about that one another one because I was surprised. I was texting Lucas about it, and it's sleeper. People sleep on that. So, but it was cool because they have kind of like a post credit epilogue where you play as Kylo Ren and you're going through like Dell's memories and stuff while he's trying to find the map to Luke Skywalker, all that. Then you have some dialogue about some type of like Project Resurrection or something similar to Project Necromancer. And then you said, Lucas, as well, it has that tie into Mandalorian. So I'd be interested, kind of some question marks with me with this final episode is, does funding and all knowledge of Project Necromancer disappear and is taken away entirely, or moving forward, does it become something that the Emperor sets up with somebody else in a different location, right? Because obviously the Emperor had his hand in everything. But I think there has to be some aspect of it that lives on, although for the moment it appears, all the funding has been directed towards the Death Star at this point. So I thought it was an excellent tie and a good way to wrap up the show. But I think there's definitely got to be something more because it carries on to that next generation. So
Right.
yeah. But yeah, anyways, back to kind of the main storyline. Would love to get you guys' thoughts on just kind of the overall vibe of the team, the Bad Batch, and also the introduction of this new kind of CX squad that we got to see as well. And the reveal, non-reveal in the end, right? Everyone was speculating. We've been speculating for the whole season, who are these assassins, whatever. And we didn't get a reveal. So would love to hear you guys' thoughts on that and how you felt about that in the episode.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me, honestly, when you said nothing crazy happened, I was like, wait a second. I totally disagree with that because Crosshair getting his hand cut off was ridiculous. I thought that was
Crazy.
like a huge part because I
Mhm.
thought for the last 8 or 9 episodes we were gonna watch Crosshair overcome whatever he was gonna overcome, and then get rid of the twitch or whatever, and then hit the big shot. Well, what actually happens is his whole hand gets cut off, and he doesn't have to deal with it anymore. And then he hits the big shot with his non-dominant hand, which is pretty dope. Like that was so cool. So
Yeah,
that
and
that
when
was
he's
a huge
supported on
moment for me.
Hunter too, when he's like supporting himself on Hunter and like aiming the gun on Hunter's shoulder, that was sick. Because
Yeah.
he's like
Dude, there
he's
was so
not used
much
to the hand.
confidence building between them. Like at the beginning, Crosshair's like, I need to go alone. Like, you guys need to be there for Omega. And they're like, no, we're going together. And then Wrecker's like, they're like, Wrecker, you need to stay back. He's like, I'm going. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop me. And then like
Yeah.
Hunter and Crosshair are like half dead in those cells, and they're like, we got to go after Omega. And like, Crosshair, you should stay back. And Crosshair's like, absolutely not. Like, we're all seeing this through together. I thought that was so
Yeah.
cool.
No, I love that aspect too. I think there was a lot of aspects of like the whole team, right? I love, Lucas, what you brought up too. The final shot, right? He's resting on Hunter's shoulder. He's missing his dominant hand, like you said. That was like shock factor for sure when they cut it off. But yeah, definitely full team effort, and kind of speaking more towards that final sequence, right, with them on the bridge in the rain and everything. I love after he makes the shot. Well, one, Omega has the confidence in Crosshair to make the shot, right? She trusts, and she's like, hey, I know you're loose, but you're gonna dial in when you need to. But then two, after he makes the shot, she comes running across the bridge, and who does she jump onto and hug? She hugs Crosshair, right? And then obviously she hugs Hunter too, but just such an emotional scene, really. And I think they played it off really well. When I saw the cover on Disney Plus for the new episode, it was like Omega like crying in the rain, and I was like, dude, she's just gonna watch like the whole batch die right here, dude. Like that's what that shot is from. But no, like the fact that that was like kind of a holistic ending point of like we've taken out Hemlock, Omega's finally kind of in a place where she's safer, was super special.
Well, as with Bad Batch as a whole, in this discussion, they all had their moments. Wrecker breaking out of the when she
Yeah.
unlocks Wrecker and he just goes crazy, and then uh Crosshair hit the shot. How about Echo?
Yeah.
Being
Echoes.
he probably won the day. I mean,
Yeah.
he other than Crosshair shot, Echo in the toxic gas, just going crazy against like four of the CX troopers, um, rallying the other clones, breaking out everyone, talking like being with Emery. I mean, he was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, vital point. If he wasn't there to save Omega and the kids, like he would like they would have been captured again, right? And so it was a good thing that he found them first, and it was a good thing that he had that, because if it wasn't for that confrontation with Emery, she probably wouldn't have had the guts to get up and be like, okay, this is my way to help them, right? She probably would have been like, well, I don't know what to do still. And so if it wasn't for Echo coming in and having that intervention with her, like I think that's the pivot point of what she's doing, right? And what caused her to turn. But yeah, I mean, kind of the CX troopers, you can kind of see they all had similar aspects to the Bad Batch, right? You had like the big tough guy. You kind of had the CX Trooper CX2 that we've seen with the sniper, right? Then you gotta have to do with the swords, but I'm assuming that's kind of like Hunter, because Hunter always uses vibroblade and stuff. But it was cool because you could see that like, it was almost a direct match against the Bad Batch. And though the Bad Batch had like they were in like their weakened state, right? Except for Echo, which honestly I thought Echo was gonna die because every one of those clones that went in with him died. Like there was all of them basically just dropped, and I was like, great, it's Echo against these three dudes, like game over, right? And then it was good because it like kind of just all came together, and it was end up Bad Batch versus the CX Trooper Squad, which then
Dude, Wrecker drops in and grabs one of them and throws their head into the metal wall.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's crazy. We knew Wrecker was strong, but the fact that he broke through his bindings, pulled up that thing like the little pod door, and then launched it across, knocking out like three of them, and then dropping the dude on the floor, and then it just shows how much stronger he actually was that we didn't realize, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, like to go to echo kind of what you guys have said about the that tender moment. You could see in Omega's eyes when she notices Crosshair's hand is gone. And she starts tearing up because she's like, look what he sacrificed, but he's still here for me, right? At least that's kind of the vibe I got. And also just our man Scorch just getting wrecked, bro. One of Delta Squad just getting absolutely
He
clapped.
got mutilated, dude.
Dude,
Yeah.
poor guy. Like he didn't have anything, right? He just like the bat just dropped him like it was nothing. So
Yeah, I think that was one area where it would have been cool to see. It's just tough to do the character justice, right? Because it's like maybe in some worlds, Scorch gets surrounded by all of like the escaped clones, and he has this like epic shootout where he takes out like tons of the clones, and then finally, after taking like 8 bullets, he goes down. But like just the fact that he's running across the bridge and gets like shot in the back by like Hunter and Crosshair, I was like, dude, rip all the Republic Commando fans in the chat. They'll be back for blood, dude.
yeah, hey,
But
there's still the rest of Delta Squad.
yeah, totally. I think one other aspect of the episode that I thought was going to be potentially a bigger point, but I felt like kind of wrapped it up well, was Lucas's background, the Zillo Beast. Obviously, we got to see kind of the closure of Zillo Beast, and I'm happy that they decided like what happens with him, because for years it's been, oh, the Emperor's trying to clone the Zillo Beast, trying to figure out how to use it for his like purposes. But at the end of the day, the batch broke it out. We don't see the Zillo Beast obviously in the OG trilogy or in the sequels. So I felt like it was a good way to kind of send that character, if you will, off, and kind of give them a proper ending. And now, Zillo Beast just roaming around Tantus having a good time. So
Well, you got to remember too. Like we assumed after last week it was going to be the plot, and
right.
it turned
Right.
out to be the diversion.
Mhm.
And I
Right.
think that's
It's the
why I
little
really
plot point.
appreciated it, is because it didn't take away from what we wanted to see. It was there to help the plot go farther. So
Yeah.
I was glad
It
how it
was
ended.
Yeah, it wasn't just saving the Space Forces, right?
Yeah.
No Star
Well,
Wars aid for us.
yeah, I was thinking it was going to be like this whole massive thing where the Zilbeast was just going to jump in and just cause the entire lab to go into like um, to a critical like condition and everything, and then they're going to be escaping, like classic Star Wars where they blow up the ship and escape before it explodes, right? But it wasn't like I actually appreciate the way it was. It literally was the reason that gave Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair a way to get in, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately the way to get out. And so that was a cool point, and I was like, okay, I actually like that better than that just being the cliche. Have this massive monster go on a rampage and destroy the base. So I appreciated that.
That's good. All right. Well, any other thoughts generally? I think we'll move, unless you guys have more thoughts on that specific kind of sequence of them breaking in, getting Omega, doing all that. We can kind of move towards the ending of the episode. We get to see kind of the resolution of everything and this epilogue where they're back on Pabu.
Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's start with the resolution of Emery.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. She comes full circle, and she takes the kids to safety. And it was great to see her choose Omega, and to try and make amends to everything she did wrong. And she found her opportunity, right? Because she couldn't really do anything in the moment of when she found out what she was doing was wrong. But when the opportunity came, she was able to make things right. And I did like that they gave her a good ending.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that was one aspect of the episode for me that felt very like on brand. Obviously it's still a kids show, for as much as we see in it, it is still a kids show. And so I felt like all along they were probably going to free the force sensitive kids, the kids with the high M count. And so I agree, it was good that Emery kind of got that moment to kind of make amends there. So but yeah, back on Pabu, I guess we get to see they make it home. It seems like Pabu's kind of this at least initial refuge for these clones that they free from there. And then they have a large aspect of the episode before kind of the time jump, where Hunter's kind of like, the clones can choose what they want to do now, and then you also have another aspect where Echo's like, hey, we can go to what's that place called? where Senator Chuchi's from
Oh, Pentora.
Pantora.
Pantora, yeah. So there's the whole idea of, the clones can go to Pantora, and Senator Chuchi again being such a pivotal character for the clones. But I liked this idea that they brought forth where they were like, the clones really have the choice of what they want to do with their destinies at this point, right? They're no longer slaves to the Empire. They're no longer soldiers in the Republic, but they're people, and it's like, okay, they can go and choose what their destiny is. And it seems like for the Bad Batch minus Omega, right, in the time jump, they were done, right? Like they'd fought enough wars, they were ready to like live out their days on Pavu and raise Omega. And for me, I felt like that was a very fitting kind of send off for them. And obviously, we could see more clones in other Star Wars adaptations, but yeah, obviously we have that time skip and we see Omega when she's older and an older Hunter as well. So would love to hear you guys' thoughts on kind of that interaction and the resolution as a whole of, Omega kind of joining, or at least going off to join the rebellion, and that kind of final interaction with Hunter.
I don't want to nitpick. I don't. This episode was amazing. It was. I'm not trying to nitpick.
Here it comes.
I'm
hot
I'm
take.
gonna I'm rounding up on my score too to prove that I don't want to nitpick. All right.
Yeah.
But we were robbed again of a final interaction from Omega with Wrecker, Omega with Crosshair, and Omega with Echo. We did not get that. And I was like, bruh, like, come on. Like, why not? Like, even if it was just kid form or if it was future form, either one, I was like, dang, I was hoping we were really gonna get that. But that's just that, like, that's not like me hating on the episode. I just they botched it with Ezra and Hera too, and Ezra and Sabine in a circle. We've already talked about it. All right.
Okay, no, I agree with that. I actually agree. I'm more towards like I wish they would have had a final interaction when she was older. Like if it was Hunter kind of waiting in the cave when she's trying to sneak out, And I wish like they had that interaction with Hunter and Omega kind of being like when he's like, "Oh, you're our kid. You're always going to be our kid, right?" And then as she's getting onto the spaceship, onto the ship, I would have appreciated if like old Wrecker and old Crosshair came in, and were like wishing her goodbye. That is my one thing that I would change about the ending. But the rest of it was super cool. I honestly loved because I mean it felt so fitting for a clone to not waste time on like goodbyes necessarily, like especially when they were kids, because they're like, hey, we got to go to Pantora, we got to go like help the rest of the clones, and so it's kind of fitting that like they're walking onto the or Echo and Emery are walking onto the ship, and they just look at him, give him the little wave and leave, and then but the cool thing is like it's Omega and Batcher was sitting there kind of just observing the kids and observing the clone cadets and stuff. And then Hunter comes in and they have that little dialogue, which is super cool. And then Wrecker and Crosshair come and just sit next to them and they just have like that was kind of like the ending still, right? And I was like, I was like, even if it ended right there, I would have been totally okay with like it wouldn't have changed my thoughts of the show at all. Like I was like, this is a great way
But because we got the extra,
but
then we want the goodbye.
because we've got the extra, it made it so much better. Because all of us, this entire show, thought this is going to be the last time we see the Batch, right? This is going to be the last time we see the Bad Batch. But Dave Filoni, being the dog that he is, being the absolute horse that he is setting it up for me like, yeah, the Bad Batch TV show is over. But this might not be the last time we get to see the Bad Batch, right? And someone I was reading on, I think it was on Twitter or something, it might have been something that you sent, Jason, but someone was talking about how a clone that they're gonna do like a kind of like either they're like a Tales of the Jedi or something talking about the clones in the rebellion and where like and how they were part of that. And I thought that was super cool because that means we're going to see we're going to see Wolf, we're going to see Cody, we're going to see the rest of the Bad Batch, we're going to see Omega, squatting up with some of the people of the rebellion, and that's going to be super cool. And yeah, so I agree with you, Jason, right there. The epilogue, my one little nitpick, it doesn't change at all my thoughts of like my ranking at all. Like my ranking is steadfast, but I would have appreciated seeing Echo Hunter and Crosshair, or Echo Crosshair and Wrecker giving a goodbye to Omega when she's leaving to join the rebellion. So those are my thoughts.
I would, and I'm not like I wouldn't wholeheartedly disagree with you. I think hearing you guys talk about that, I'm like, okay, yeah, it would have been nice to see, but just thinking about like when I first watched it the other day, I honestly didn't really miss that. Like I felt like it would have been good to see now that you guys pointed out. But for me, I felt like we got to see, like you were describing, Lucas, Echo and Emery get on the ship, they fly away, they kind of give them the wave, whatever. And then we have that kind of zoom out shot where you have Omega's got her head on Hunter's shoulder, and then you have Echo and or Crosshair and Wrecker sitting there, and you have that kind of like zoom out shot, and you're like, okay, like that for me was like the goodbye. But I think that the impact of Hunter being the one in the cave, I think Hunter has been a father figure to Omega throughout the whole show. Whereas I feel like Wrecker and Crosshair and Echo and Tech have all been brothers to her, right? So I feel like she looks at Wrecker in a different way than she looks at Hunter, right? If Hunter's like, hey, you're not playing Xbox tonight, she's like, great, I'm not playing Xbox, right? Like dad said no. But if it's Wrecker's gonna be like, dude, we're trying to like goof off tonight and have a good time, Like Wrecker's just like a brother to her. Whereas Hunter has always been the leader of the team. And so I felt like it was a really touching moment. Like you guys said, it definitely wasn't a bad thing. Nothing wrong with that scene. But I felt like it was very touching to have Hunter there and to hear their dialogue because he has been this father figure to her throughout the show. And I love the part in the end when he's like, like it's your life, like you're free to go and like join the rebellion. Our war is over and we're here, But he's like you were always our girl, like we were always raising you. And so that for me was just like super cool. And I think the perfect way to end the show and just has been the theme throughout all of Bad Batch hasn't been Empire versus Rebellion. It hasn't been these big galactic consequences. It's all been about keeping Omega safe and raising her and kind of shielding her from those things so that she could then make that decision. So I love that we got to see an older version of Omega finally kind of take control of her destiny and say, I need to do more by helping the rebellion. But it was her choice to make after Hunter and Wrecker and everyone else in the Bad Batch had given her that opportunity to kind of grow up and choose her destiny. So that's what I'd say about that scene.
Well, and here's the thing too. I think my wanting for the that sentimental moment with the entire batch came after I started listening to the soundtrack in the credits. That song, guys, is it's the best song. I don't know if y'all listen to it. I don't. That song I think it's top 5. I think I'm putting it top 5 Star Wars soundtrack. I think I am.
That's big.
It's up there with Burying the Dead. It's up there with Across the Stars. It's up there with Duel of the Fates.
Star Wars.
I was like shook, dude.
Star Wars
that soundtrack, this season 3 soundtrack was on another level.
It was ridiculous.
They pulled the emotional strings better than a lot of other seasons of S tier content from Star Wars. So that was my huge takeaway at the end too, is wow, this finale soundtrack is just on another level.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else to add, then we'll just get into our ratings for the day. We'll have why don't you start us off, Lucas?
Yeah, 10. Easy 10. I just story driven, just action, just twist, everything that happened in this TV episode. And you can quote me on this, can match some of the Clone Wars and even Rebels episodes. And it finished the story in such a satisfying way that I'm like, I'm good. Like, if this is the last time I see the Bad Batch, I'm not gonna be in the Reddit posts getting all upset about it. I'm okay. I'm good. Like, this is great. And I think that's what Dave Filoni was trying to do. But he also being the dog that he is, left it open, right? It's not like open it. It's not like closed shut. We're never going to see the Bad Batch again. It's like, it might. So I'm like, okay, great. I mean, everything, like you said, Jason, soundtrack, just dialogue. Some of the dialogue was crazy. There's no way I can't not give this a 10. it's a solid and deserving 10.
Jason, what you
All
got?
right. Lucas, I'm taking it a step further than you did, man. So it's a 10 out of 10. All right. I gave last episode a 9.5. So the only way that this could be proportional is if this is a perfect 10. But you said this rivals some of the Rebels and Clone Wars episodes. I mean, I think I already, in my top 10 arcs, I already had season 2, episode 7 and 8, where Senator Chuchi stands up for the clones. I already have that arc in my top 10 of across animated Star Wars. So this arc definitely is breaking the top 10, let alone ranking season finales. And like, I don't think it's going to break the series finales. I think it's still third on series finales for Clone Wars,
Right.
Rebels, and Bad Batch. But I think for season finales across like there's what, 7 plus 4 plus 3, 14 of them. It's definitely top 5, like easy top 5.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take it that far and say it's definitely up there for some of the greatest Star Wars content we've ever gotten. But yeah, 10 out of 10. We've already broken it all out. I'm not gonna elaborate much more than that. So
I do want to make a note here real quick though. I will give Jason props because when we were talking about we're talking
the
about
hate in the
episode.
chat on Bad Batch, bro. I
No,
gotta
no,
stand by
no.
myself.
That's not what I was gonna bring up. I was gonna talk about episode 13. I think it was either 13 or 4 or 13 or 12 when I was like, meh, it's a meh episode, right? It was like, all right. And you brought up the point, you're like, well, if we saw this, if we binged the entire season, what would this like rank, right? And I agree. I would put this up. I would, if I could go back and redo my rating for that episode, it'd probably go higher. So I
That's
will
the
give you that.
problem with weekly watching. We have to start binging it. Maybe that'll change our opinions on the show.
Very well could. I'll bring it home here. I can't add anything else. I go 10 out of 10 as well. I have probably been a harsher critic of many episodes of The Bad Batch, obviously with some of my earlier rankings being like 6s and like, I don't know if I ever got down to 5s, but I think there have been some episodes throughout seasons 1 and 2 that were challenging to get through. But I think, like Lucas said, this was the perfect way to send off the show. And the only thing I think I could add to what you guys said is it felt like an ending to Bad Batch, but it also felt like an ending to the entire Clone Wars era, where finally we get to see the clones are free to make their decision, right? They're not brainwashed into following the Empire. They're not, being slaves of, being lab rats, whatever, But finally, the clones are at this point where it's like their time in their war is over. Now their destiny is theirs, right? And so I think it was very fitting, and it left me really happy in the end to see that the Bad Batch ended up where they were, and Omega has her whole life to live, and that's open ended. That's great. But also, I felt like there was a lot of closure with Clone Wars that we've been watching since 2008 when it came out. So just excellent writing, again, up there with best episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels. So big fan. But anyways, I think that'll do it for our Bad Batch review series. And we'll see what's next. We got a bunch of stuff from Star Wars on the horizon, other shows as well. Me and Jason were texting about Star Wars Outlaws, new video game coming out. We got Tales of the Empire really soon, and the Acolyte as well. So stay tuned for more Star Wars content coming at you.